So good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm Barbara Young. As founder and lead organizer of Chicago Equal Pay Day Rally, I'm thrilled to see so many old and new friends and supporters here with us today. It's my honor to welcome you to our 9th annual Chicago Equal Pay Day Rally. And I promise you, we have an amazing program lined up for you. Why are we here? First and foremost, it's to recognize the wage gap that continues to exist between workers based on gender, race, and national origin. Equal Pay Day is symbolic of the day in early April when, after working 15 months, women finally come even with what men earned the prior calendar year, based on women earning an average of 80 cents on the dollar. This calculation is based on an average of all women, and in fact, the wage gap is much greater for women of color. And while we have much to celebrate this year with the successful Me Too campaign, ERA gaining momentum, and the upcoming mayoral election of the first African-American woman in Chicago's history, we still have a lot of work to do to eliminate the wage gap. But with your help, I know we can get it done. Turn the page. If you are an employer, audit your compensation policies to ensure that they are being applied consistently. If you're an employee, ask for what you're worth. Negotiate. Negotiate salary and negotiate benefits. And let's make sure when we come back next year, we've made substantial progress toward eliminating the wage gap. But first, please indulge me while I just take a moment to recognize some of the people that made today's rally possible. First, please join me in thanking my family and my colleagues at Golan Christie Taglia for supporting me in my efforts to eliminate the wage gap. Not only is my law firm over 50% women, we also have many men of quality who believe in equality. Second, I want to express my thanks to the members of the Equal Pay Day Planning Committee, and any one of you who wants to participate next year, come see me. They have volunteered their time and talent to make this event possible. Third, we need to thank the City of Chicago for once again allowing us to use the Daily Plaza, and their employees who set up the stage, the seating, and the sound system for us. Thank you. Next, I'd like to thank our sponsors. If you were able to pick up one of these flyers at the table, on the back, there's a list of all of our supporting organizations, which have grown to over 50 supporting organizations. You know who you are. Thank you. And our sponsors who support us financially include the Illinois Federation of Business Women's Clubs, AAUW Illinois, the Wood Law Firm, and our latest sponsor, Ywca, the exclusive professional women's networking group. Thank you. We also need to thank CAN TV for carrying today's event live. CAN TV is celebrating their 36th anniversary this year, and we'd like to thank them for providing the tools and the training Chicagoans need to create their own programming and express their voices. If you know someone who is not able to attend today's event in person, please let them know they can watch live right now on Chicago Cable Channel 27 or online at cantv.org. Thank you, CAN TV. And finally, it's my pleasure to introduce this year's Emcee, my good friend, Jacqueline Prego. Jackie is the writer, creator, co-director, and actress of Pink Slipped, a web series. Jackie's passion for social justice and women's rights manifested itself in the form of Pink Slipped, which she debuted in the fall of 2018, right down the street at 1871. The show follows the lives of 3 Latinx best friends navigating their careers while coming to terms that they're greater than the sum of their stifling jobs, self-sabotage, and cultural stereotypes, with a focus on immigration, tokenism, and equal pay. To date, Jackie and the show have been featured in multiple publications and news programs, including the Washington Post, The Lily, the Chicago Tribune, Modern Brown Girl, ABC 7 News Chicago, WGN TV News, Vocalo, and Bitch Magazine. So please join me in welcoming Jackie, and I will see you next year. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barb, for the introduction. This is an incredible moment for me. This is an incredible moment for my family. I'd like to thank them for coming out, sitting front row. Oh, am I? Yeah. Just in case you didn't hear that, that was a thank you, Mom and Dad. But it has been a roller coaster of a year, I think, for women's rights, for me personally, and I think for the city of Chicago. And I couldn't be more proud to stand with these women and men, allies, on this dais, to not rally around or honor equal pay, but really to shout out and say that we demand equality, we demand equity, and we demand it now. This is our time, right? I wrote Pink Slipped about 4.5 years ago, and I wrote it because of the issues that I saw that were affecting not just my community, but other communities as well. And these issues persist today in the workplace. They still affect me, they still affect my friends, they still affect the men and women of this city. And so it's very important that we, yes, get together, but let's, channel this energy, channel this anger, channel this persistence for equity, and continue to support organizations like Barb's amazing, incredible organization, and all of the organizations that are up here today and that will speak, because these are the people that are getting things done. On a lighter note, I'd love to introduce you all to our first, our performer for today, the incredibly talented Tatianna Hazel, who has been featured through Apple Music, has hundreds of thousands of followers on Spotify. She will be, I believe, she'll be debuting a new song today. So I'd like to welcome Tatianna to the stage to perform. And a side note, she also did the music for Pink Slip. So I owe this woman so much, and I'm so happy to support her. Side note also, she is paid for this event because we do believe in pay equity. Okay. Tatianna, I don't know, do these come on?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Tatianna Hazel. And as Jackie said, I'll be performing a new song for you guys. It's called Persistent, which I thought was great for today because it is about being persistent. Myself being a woman in the music industry, like equal pay applies to every industry, so that's kind of what this song is about for me. But, yeah. Got my finger on the trigger, like I'm about to blow your mind, and you're calling me a killer. Sorry that I take what's mine, and I'm sorry that you're bitter. You feel like you got left behind, and I got good intentions, but I don't intend to waste my time. So I'm saying goodbye, saying goodbye, saying goodbye for the last time. Saying goodbye, saying goodbye, saying goodbye, feels so right. Taking my time, taking my time, changing my mind, changing my mind. Feeling the vibe, feeling the vibe. I get frustrated and I don't wanna talk anymore. And I can't take it, this feeling's getting hard to ignore. I'm growing out of my past and I could never look back. Back, back, back. I could never look back. And I've been feeling different than I have before. Yeah, I was always wishing, holding out for something more. Yeah, I've been real persistent, and I've been knocking down these doors. So don't be so dismissive, I gotta keep it moving forward. So I'm saying goodbye, saying goodbye, saying goodbye for the last time. Saying goodbye, saying goodbye, saying goodbye, feels so right. Taking my time, taking my time, changing my mind, changing my mind. Feeling the vibe, feeling the vibe. I get frustrated and I don't wanna talk anymore. And I can't take it, this feeling's getting hard to ignore. I'm growing out of my past and I could never look back. Back, back, back. I don't like the clouding up the space inside my mind. I don't like reminders of the things I've left behind. I don't like the way you look at me when you're distressed. Like I can fix it all, but I can only try my best. I get frustrated and I don't wanna talk anymore. And I can't take it, this feeling's getting hard to ignore. I'm growing out of my past and I could never look back. Back, back, back. Thank you. And this next song is called No Me Encuentras, if I have any Spanish speakers in the audience. Me buscas y ya no me encuentras, te evito porque tú me afectas. Solo quiero ser como yo soy. Y yo he hecho todo por ti, ahora solo pienso en mí. Siempre he querido ser mejor. Y cuando me besas, actúas como no te afecta. Baby, porque tú me mientas. Yo sé muy bien lo que piensas. Si lo piensas, estar conmigo. Siempre estás bien defensivo. Y yo solo sé estar contigo. Por eso es que me despido. Ay, Dios mío. Esta noche será tuya, esta noche será mía, viviendo vida día a día. Esta noche será tuya, esta noche será mía, viviendo vida día a día. Quiero tenerte en mi mente, me distraes, te la pasas rodeando con toda tu gente. Yo no quiero sentirme así, siempre deseo lo mejor para ti, pero ahora me quiero enfocar. Dime lo que sientes, yo sé que no eres muy paciente, pero si me amas tú lo aprendes. Dime que lo jura, dime que no fue todo locura, que aunque no volvemos me disfruta. Dime que lo sientes, yo sé que no eres muy paciente, pero si me amas tú lo aprendes. Dime que lo jura, dime que no fue todo locura, que aunque no volvemos me disfruta. tú me mientas. Yo sé muy bien lo que piensas, si lo piensas estar conmigo. Está bien defensivo, yo solo sé estar contigo. Por eso es que me despido, ay Dios mío. Esta noche será tuya, esta noche será mía, viviendo vida día a día. Esta noche será tuya, esta noche será mía, viviendo vida día a día. Thank you guys. Once again, my name is Tatianna Hazel, and thank you all for coming out to support this cause and for having me.
Let's give it up one more time for Tatianna Hazel. Oh, we can't thank her enough. She has been touring all over the place. I actually just met up with her in Austin at South by Southwest, where she performed for thousands of crowds, and we're the first to get to hear her new song. So I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so now I have the distinct pleasure of introducing Mona Noriega. Mona serves as chairman and commissioner of the Chicago Commission on Human Relations, otherwise known as CCHR. The CCHR is charged with enforcing the Chicago Human Rights Ordinance and the Chicago Fair Housing Ordinance and investigates complaints of discrimination. Since her appointment, Commissioner Noriega has helped to expand civil rights protections in the city of Chicago, ensuring that gender non-conforming individuals can use the restroom of their choice. Yes. Champion the addition of military status as a protected category, and in the context of employment, fought for the addition of credit history and criminal history as protected areas under the human rights ordinances. So happy to introduce Mona.
So good afternoon. Good afternoon. So who are all these beautiful women here to celebrate pay equity? Oh wait, we don't have pay equity. We have institutionalized, socially accepted discrimination. Yep, that's what we have here. All beautiful women who work hard. But as we all know, women have to work harder and longer to earn the equivalent of what a man makes. It wasn't fair when my abuelita's labor was grossly undervalued. It wasn't fair when my mother's labor was undervalued, and it's not fair today to you, to me, or to our families. And without action, a demand for change, this discrimination will continue to be experienced by our daughters and our granddaughters. I say no to discrimination, and I say no to pay inequity. So let me point out the Chicago Commission on Human Relations peeps are over there. There's a table over there. If you want to file a complaint based on discrimination, people are over there willing to hear you speak. Also with us are our colleagues from the State of Illinois Human Rights Commission. You want to raise your hand, say who you are, talk to them. It's reprehensible that African American women have to work until August. That's over a year and a half to equal what a white man makes. Latina women have to work all the way into November. That is close to 2 years to earn the equivalent of what a white man earns. That is not acceptable. One small step in addressing pay inequity is not allowing inquiries into a person's salary history during the application, the interview, and the job offer process. Last year, the mayor signed an executive order that prohibits city departments during the hiring process from asking job applicants about salary history. We can go even further here in the state of Illinois and support the No Salary History ban, which would further strengthen the state of Illinois' Equal Pay Act. I have the mayor's proclamation here. I'm going to read it. He recognizes pay inequity and encourages us all to strengthen the state of Illinois' Equal Pay Act. And the proclamation reads, whereas more than 50 years after the passage of the Equal Pay Act, women, especially minority women, continue to suffer the consequences of unequal pay. And whereas according to the results of the U.S. Census Bureau, the median earnings of women working full-time, year-round, on average, are 80% of what men earned, indicating little, can I say little, progress in pay equity. Whereas according to Graduating to a Pay Gap, a 2012 research report by the American Association of University Women, the gender pay gap is evident 1 year after college graduation. Whereas in 2009, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act was signed into law, which gives back to employees their day in court to challenge a pay gap. And now we must pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, which would amend the Equal Pay Act by closing loopholes and improving the law's effectiveness, as well as strengthening Illinois' Equal Pay Act by preventing employers from asking job applicants about their previous salary history. Call your representatives. Nearly 4 in 10 mothers are primary breadwinners in their households, and nearly 2/3 are primary or significant earners, making pay equity critical to families' economic security. And whereas a lifetime of lower pay means women have less income to save for retirement and less income counted in Social Security or pension benefit formula. And whereas women represent nearly half of the American workforce and are 51% of the population in Chicago, and they are equally, if not totally, responsible for the economic viability of their families. Now, therefore, I, Rahm Emanuel, Mayor of the City of Chicago, do hereby proclaim March 28 today to be Women's Equal Pay Day in Chicago in recognition of the Equal Pay Act and the contributions of women to the activities and ceremonies with a commitment to advance equal pay for women, dated Mayor Rahm Emanuel. And to you, I get to present. Take a picture of Rahm.
I don't know about you, but that really pumped me up. That recognition that means so much, this proclamation, its progress. I have another distinct pleasure of introducing someone much younger that I feel holds the key to the future, to the progress of where I hope we're headed. We had an Equal Pay Day essay contest, and we are very fortunate today to have that winner, Ahana Gupta from Walter Payton College Prep High School, here today with us. Her school let her come out to join us to read her essay that won our contest. And I'm so proud to introduce Ahana, the future of equal pay.
Hi everyone, again, my name is Ahana Gupta. I go to Walter Payton College Prep and I'm a senior there. So I'm going to read an excerpt of my essay that I wrote. Why does this pay gap persist? While it is shrinking as women gain higher levels of education and more work experience, gender discrimination persists no matter what the pay grade. My word does not carry the same weight, and with male superiors, the tone is to order versus have a dialogue with female colleagues compared to male colleagues, says Dr. Bharti Prasad, a physician scientist at the University of Illinois at Chicago. The foundation of gender discrimination lies in the prejudices of others, subjective in nature, which makes it difficult to measure, and bridging the gap of the remaining wage gap complex. There are many other factors whose effects compound, like the choice to become a mother and lower confidence levels of women than men in asking for promotions. The lack of confidence starts at a young age. I have female students who doubt their own abilities, which I think can be sourced to the systemic misogyny that pervades our culture, says Miss Jamie Parler, an English teacher at Walter Payton College Prep. Girls carry this with them throughout their adult lives. Less confidence in the workplace translates into fear of backlash for self-promotion. For women, self-promotion makes them less likable and arrogant. For men, they then have the qualities of a leader. This difference has been documented in many studies. Confidence in females and its social acceptance, once normalized, is a fundamental way to narrow the wage gap. When women are confident, they empower themselves and can raise their voices to fight for equal pay. Change starts with the women affected. Thank you.
She's incredible. She's the future. She's now. We have with us next Cook County Board President Dorie Mcwhorter. She has been a dedicated community leader for over 2 decades. In her 19 years as alderman, President Mcwhorter improved the quality of life for her constituents by providing independent, transparent, and accountable leadership. She built a professional and responsive ward organization and worked tirelessly to meet the diverse needs of her constituents. She has successfully fought for greater funding for education and affordable housing in her ward. She sponsored the living wage and affordable housing ordinances and was a lead plaintiff in a lawsuit to institute a more racially equitable map of Chicago's ward boundaries. President Mcwhorter sponsored an ordinance that limits the establishment of payday loan stores and was a lead sponsor of the anti-smoking ordinance. President Mcwhorter was elected Cook County Board President on November 2nd, 2010. She holds a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from the University of Chicago, and she has taught high school history for 10 years before being elected to City Council. She's amazing, and we have her here with us today.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. You know, I'm sad to say that American women who work full-time, year-round, are still paid only 80 cents for every dollar paid to their white male counterparts. Over the course of her lifetime, this gap will cost a woman and her family lost wages, reduced pensions, and diminished Social Security benefits. For women of color, the gaps are even larger. Women of color, of course, carry a double burden, racism and sexism. It's important to take that intersection into account when we look at their economic security. At the current rate of change, Latina women will have to wait until 2233, I'll say that again, 2233, and black women until 2124 for equal pay. 214 years for black women, that's ridiculous. Women cannot afford to wait that long, needless to say. We must address this discrimination now. You know we're lucky to live here in Chicago. This year we christened a street named after Ida B. Wells, our first downtown street named after a woman of color. Ida B. Wells was a leader in the civil rights movement. She was an advocate for justice and a suffragette. We're lucky to live in Chicago, the city of Saul Alinsky and Jane Addams, and so many activists who refused to settle for the status quo when conditions were clearly unfair. We're lucky to live in Chicago, a city known for such activists, community organizers, and progressives. We have a rich history to draw from and a model for our activism today. At a time when families across the country are finding themselves forced to do more with less, we're reminded that equal pay isn't just a women's issue. It's a family issue. It's an economic issue. It's a societal issue. We must all work together to achieve this change through intentional and transparent hiring practices, fighting for fair wages so that no one of any gender is forced to live in poverty, and remembering that we can do more than reform. We can transform. Transform Chicago into a model city where women receive equal pay, the pay they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I don't know which one's better. I'm just going to hop between the two. Up next, we have Anna Valencia. Anna was sworn in as City Clerk of Chicago on January 25th, 2017, overseeing one of the largest offices in the city, serving 1.2 million Chicagoans and generating more than $130 million annually. As City Clerk, Valencia has focused on making government accessible to all Chicagoans, finding new and innovative ways to bring services directly to residents, increase civic engagement, solve inefficiencies, and collaborate across government in the private and public sectors. I'm so proud to introduce to you Anna Valencia.
Thank you for having me. Let's see how this, I'll do the same. Is that better? Okay, there we go. Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I'm Anna Valencia, the city clerk, and the second woman and second Latina to hold this position since 1837. This morning, I spent some time at the Cook County Jail with some of the women there. We're exploring the possibility of them leaving the county jail with a city key card, a government valid ID that's also a library card and CTA card, because a lot of times when women and men are leaving the Cook County Jail, they leave with nothing. And imagining starting your life and trying to find a job without an ID or being able to get housing or employment. And then imagine leaving as a woman of color and not getting paid the same as a male gets paid or a male counterpart gets paid. For these women, there's no time to wait. We keep having this conversation. I'm happy to be here every single year to talk about equal pay, but we need action now. We cannot afford to wait. And I say this because you heard Cook County Board President Tony Prac Winkle talk about how Latinas aren't going to get paid equal pay for 214 years. And we talk about that only Latinas right now make 53 cents for every dollar, and in November won't actually have a full dollar. So I want us to think about what it means when we support all women at all walks of life, all socioeconomic statuses. When we actually support women, when they leave something like the Cook County Jail, and we give them housing, and we give them mental health services, and we give them a job that pays them equally, we uplift all communities, we uplift all cities, and we uplift all countries. So that's why I'm here today in solid support with all my sisters on this stage, is to say that representation matters. People who have positions of powers in CEO suites, or the mayor of the city of Chicago, or the governor of the state, or the president of the United States, Congress, these positions matter. And so we have to make sure we're electing more women at the top, and I'm excited to see that next Tuesday we'll have the first African-American female mayor of the city of Chicago. To go along with our very first African-American lieutenant governor for the state of Illinois. And we have to rally around these ladies, we have to rally around these women to make sure that we can actually make movement in this salary history and this salary gap. So thank you so much for having me today.
Anna, your words like struck my heart because I am one of those Latinas. And I can't afford to wait 214 years. I'm 35, and I don't think I'll make it to 214 before I see equal pay. So thank you for those words. I have the pleasure now to introduce our keynote speaker, Michelle Silverthorne, founder and CEO of Inclusion Nation. Ms. Silverthorne is the founder and CEO of Inclusion Nation, a diversity consulting firm based in Chicago, a recognized expert in organizational diversity. Michelle works with clients in all industries to design spaces centered on courage, belonging, and authenticity. She equips her audiences across the country with the knowledge and skills to finally move forward on diversity and inclusion. A graduate of Princeton University and the University of Michigan Law School, Michelle practiced for 2 large law firms in New York and Chicago. She She then transitioned into the legal education field, where she trained thousands of attorneys in person and online about implicit bias, diversity and inclusion, and millennials in the workplace. She has written numerous articles on those topics, including a well-received op-ed for the Chicago Tribune on implicit bias. She is a TEDx speaker and the author of the forthcoming book, Your Organization is Not a Melting Pot: How to Recruit, Train, and Lead a Diverse Workforce. It is my pleasure to have Michelle Silverthorne join us at the podium.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my absolute pleasure to be here. I am Michelle Silverthorne. I founded about a year ago my diversity consulting company, Inclusion Nation. It has been a fantastic journey and wonderful experience. I'm so happy to be here with you today to talk about the missing piece in the pay equity discussion. And to help with that, I want to introduce two people, Dave and Sandra. Dave is a young white man. Sandra is a young white woman. They both graduate from college at the same time. They go work for the same company. They start in the same department at the same level. But then something changes. It starts with the assignments that Dave is doing. And Dave is doing more complicated, more complex, more interesting assignments than Sandra's doing. Because Dave is meeting people from socialization. He's socializing with the white male executives in his office. They stop by his office, they want to chat. They talk about their shared interests, their shared networks, their shared neighborhoods. And when they do that, when they go out for drinks, when they go out for coffees, they talk about work. They talk about the work that Dave has. They talk about the work that Dave needs. But Sandra doesn't get that. No one drops by Sandra's office to see if she's free to chat. Sandra reaches out, but she doesn't have anything in common with these white male executives. They don't share the same neighborhoods. She doesn't have the same social networks. So she's always the one reaching out. And when she does, she gets work, and then she gets feedback, and she's told she does good work. But then that's it. So they continue, and then they get their evaluations. And Dave gets some positive, growth-oriented evaluations, and Sandra's, hers are good too, but it's more neutral, not really positive, not really negative, just says keep doing what she's doing. So then they continue, and Sandra tries hard. She works the hours, she works the hard hours, she works harder than a lot of people in the office, sometimes including Dave, and she goes to all the networking events, the affinity group meetings. She keeps working and she keeps working. She has ideas, she brings them to leadership. They don't really go anywhere, but she never feels like she's a part of the workplace. And then a leadership position opens up. And Sandra thinks she's gonna get it. She has done all the work that she needs to get it, but she doesn't get it. Dave does. And so Sandra goes and she asks why. Why didn't I get it? And she's told this, Sandra, no one knows who you are. No one speaks up about you in meetings. No one talks about you. Your evaluations, they aren't great, and you know what? There's been some concerns about your performance. But Sandra's like, what? No one's ever told me any of that before. I've asked, I've never heard anything like this. I've been doing all the work. I've been going to all the meetings. I'm on the company's page touting diversity. And they say, Sandra, no, that's not enough. How did you not know that's not enough? Look at Dave. Dave got the good work. Dave had the clients that mattered. People talk about Dave. Dave clearly is committed to this company. And you, Sandra, you're not invested in success. You know what you need to do? You need to lean in. So Sandra has to decide what she's gonna do. Dave gets promoted. He keeps heading up to the sky. And Sandra has to figure out, is she gonna stay where she is, or is she gonna leave? Now, why did Dave get the good work? Why were the white male leaders more comfortable promoting Dave than Sandra? The reason is bias. And bias is the reason I'm here talking with you today. So to understand bias, I want to do an experiment with you guys. I want to do a brain exercise. So pay attention to what I'm about to say. Pay attention to where everyone is and what they're all doing. Okay, you guys ready? Two lawyers, partners in a law firm, walk into a local bar. Right behind them, a truck driver who really wants to stop at this bar for the night. The lawyers nod at the judge in the corner, who they know, and know that the judge is sitting with one of their legal assistants. The lawyers go up to the bar. The bartender asks the lawyers what they would like to drink. The lawyers order a drink, say cheers, and start to drink. Suddenly, one of the lawyers starts choking, falls backwards, and is caught by the truck driver. The bartender calls out for a doctor. 2 doctors and a firefighter rush up to the bar, as does the judge and the legal assistant. The firefighter starts to administer CPR, and the lawyer starts choking and is able to breathe again. So relieved, the lawyer turns to the bar and very apologetically offers to buy the whole group drinks. The bartender laughs, she shakes her head, and she says to all 8 women standing there, "Don't worry about it. Something crazy always happens when it's ladies' night at the bar." Now I want you to be honest. Until I said that last part with the bartender, how many of you thought that all the people in that story, save potentially one, was a man? Right? The lawyers were men. The firefighter was a man. The truck driver was a man. The judge was a man. How many of you thought the legal assistant was a man? Let's talk implicit bias. See, here's what your brain did. Your brain's really smart. It's your brain, right? And what your brain wants to do is it wants to make connections. It wants to make a story. But all I told you in the story was what these people's occupations were. I didn't tell you anything else. But what your brain did was add names and clothing and accents and looks. And you know what else you did? You gave them genders and you gave them races. Were any of your lawyers black? Thank you. Was your judge Hispanic? Was your truck driver Asian? Here, for a lot of people, you know what's going to happen except for that man over there in the corner. For the vast majority of people, everyone in that story is going to be a man, except for the legal assistant. And everyone in that story is going to be white, possibly except for one of the doctors, and possibly again except for the legal assistant. And that's how implicit bias tricks with your brain. See, what implicit bias is, it's a shortcut for your brain. Now, you can start the story millions of years ago, and we have the prehistoric people, and we're living on the savannah, and we have to make these shortcut assumptions about what's safe and what's not safe. Where can we go? What can we hunt? Are we in danger? And now we're here. We're not on the savannah anymore, but we're still making these instant impressions, these instant deductions in how we're going to tackle on this world. And it's those impressions, it's those categories. It's when you say, look, tall, green, leaves, that's a tree. Red light, red circle, don't touch, emergency, don't go there. And when you have those categories, when you keep applying those categories, that's what implicit bias is. It's that automatic categorization and millions of bits of information that come in every second of the day. And when you apply those categories to people, we call them something else. We call them stereotypes. So how does implicit bias play out in the real world? Here are some studies. 250 fictional people, a variety of ethnically identifiable names. Lamar Washington, Mai Chen, Brad Anderson. They sent identical emails to top professors around the country, saying they were interested in their work and they'd love to learn more. The findings? Women and minorities are systematically less likely to get responses from the professors, especially Indian students and Chinese students. Or another one. So these researchers sent around a resume, identical resume. One had the name Jennifer, one had the name John. They sent the resume to top lab scientists, again, around the country, and they asked them, who would you mentor, who would you hire, and how much would you pay them? Across the board, the scientists were more willing to hire John, they were more willing to mentor John, and when they did hire Jennifer, they wanted to pay her a salary, on average, $4,000 less than John. Here's another story. We have a lot of lawyers here, right? This is an evaluation done with law firms. So they looked at the feedback in law firms, and they looked at who got the subjective feedback and who got the objective feedback. And they found that women got a lot more critical subjective feedback. And even when men got the subjective feedback too, do you know what they found? They found that the men got more positive, growth-oriented feedback, like Dave, and when the woman had it, it was more negative. For example, let me read this to you. Heidi seems to shrink when she's around clients. She needs to be more assertive. However, Jim just needs to develop his natural ability to work with people. Or Simone seems paralyzed and confused when she's facing tight deadlines to make decisions. But Cameron Cameron seems hesitant in making decisions, yet he is able to work out multiple alternative solutions and find the right one. It's the halo effect he gets because he is a man, and it's the horns effect that she gets because she's a woman. Another analysis, this one done of military performance reviews, it found that men and women scored the same when it came to objective measures like fitness or class ranking or grades. But you know where it came up to be a problem? When you got to those subjective measures, here are the words that were used to describe women, the negative words. Inept, selfish, frivolous, passive, scattered, opportunistic, gossipy, excitable, vain, panicky, temperamental, and indecisive. Do you know what the men got? They got two words: arrogant and irresponsible. And so now we're going to the promotion level. Which of those two people are going to get the halo effect? Who's going to get the horns? Are you more likely to want to promote the arrogant commander or the inept one? See, it also reminds me of something I do in my workshops on leadership. So here's what I do. I have the room do three different things. I have the first group think of words and adjectives that describe a typical man. Then I have the second group think of words and adjectives that describe a typical woman. And then the third group, you know what I have them do? Words and adjectives that describe a typical leader. And then we compare our notes. We compare our lists, and here's what we find. Group 1, group 3, almost identical. But group 2, the words like maternal, caring, sympathetic, empathetic, listening, those words are never on the leadership list. Which leads to one of my favorite studies. Malcolm Gladwell, he wrote this in Blink. In the US population, 14.5% of men are over 6 feet tall. Among CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, do you know what that number is? It is 58%. In the US population, 3.9% of adult men are over 6'2". Among CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, that number is 30%. The average height of a woman in the United States of America is 5'4". There are 24 women CEOs of Fortune 500 companies in this country. So now that we've talked about the studies, I want to talk about how it feels. How it feels to be Sandra. It's the maternal bias, where we ask Sandra, so who's going to watch your kids while you're working? But we never ask Sandra's husband that question. It's when we assume that women should be dedicated to their children at all times, but we never make that same assumption about fathers. It's who we choose to hire, who we choose to put into our spaces. And we choose people just because they're the right fit. We think they're the right fit for us, but we never dive into what does it mean to be a right fit? What does it mean to be a success here? It's who we choose to promote, who we choose to advocate for, who we choose to put into positions of leadership. And the people that we choose, or we just look at them because they seem to be the natural leaders. It's when a man walks into my office and I'm sitting down in my seat and he says, oh, no, I'm so sorry. I'm looking for the manager. He's supposed to be sitting here. While I, the black woman with my name on the door, is sitting there in my chair, right? That's what it feels like. It's who gets mentored by leaders, who gets chosen to be leaders. It's who gets the right assignments. It's who gets the right jobs. It's who we socialize with. It's who we go out to coffee with. It's when this white male executive, a friend of mine, told me that he knows who the next superstar in his office is going to be, because it's the man he brings home to meet him and his wife for dinner. It's who we bring into our social networks. It's how we indicate based on accent or word choice or clothing or language or gender or race that someone is not even competent enough to be there. It's in all the million ways that we indicate that there is an in-group of people who look like me, and there is an out-group of people who don't. And when that in-group is the same as leadership, as the ones who have the power in the workplace, that is the group that will always get ahead. And that out-group that doesn't get the benefit of the doubt, that out-group that does not get that extra push, they are the ones who are going to have to work twice as hard just to make 80 cents on the dollar. That's what implicit bias feels like, and that is the missing piece in this equity discussion. So the question is, now that we know it, what are we going to do about it? 1, advocate for women. Sponsor woman, mentor woman. Use the voice that you have to speak up on behalf of people who bias has excluded from success. Give them the good work. Give them the good assignments. Introduce them to the executives and the clients, the ones with the power. Use your social capital to promote women. Invest in the Sondras of the world. They will return your investment to you tenfold. Second, you have to measure and you have to track. Are you putting initiatives into place? Have you measured the success of those initiatives? And when you do, look at your executives. Figure out the women and the men. How did they get to where they were? Why were they successful? What assignments did they have? What business development opportunities did they get? What mentors did they have? What were their evaluations? What were their bonuses? And if and when they left, where did they go and why? Number 3, when you measure and when you track, you need to do something else. You have to create competencies, and you need to use those competencies when you hire. What do I mean? How do you get to the next level in your organization? Is there a secret track that only the in-group knows about? Well, the out-group has to use the public track, the public levels, and maybe some of them get really lucky and they get onto that inside track, but that's only if they are really lucky and they work really hard. Figure out competencies. Use those competencies when you're hiring, when you're onboarding, when you're promoting, when you're evaluating. And if you don't think you can be objective, because that's the goal, to get away from the subjectivity, to get toward the objectivity, then at the very least, give women the same halo that you've been giving the men. Here's the last one, and this is the hardest one of all. See, I'm going to tell you a secret. Women, and especially women of color, we know we're not included in your workplaces. We know we're not represented in leadership. We know that our way of acting, our way of thinking, the culture that we have, we know that it is not as respected as other people's. So we try. We try to be someone else every single time we walk in those doors. We code switch. We live a double life. We don't talk about our kids. We change our clothes. We change our hair. We check our behaviors. We correct our thoughts. We correct our actions, all in an attempt to live up to norms and values that were decided when we weren't even allowed in the room. You really want to change pay equity, you really want to create an equal workplace, then you need to take a hard look at your workplace and ask yourself this. In a country that is almost 70% women and people of color, why are we still designing workplaces for only 30% of that population to succeed? Because no matter how hard I try, no matter how much I assimilate, no matter how much I code switch, I am not, I have not been, and I will never be a white man. Ever. I am a black woman, and there is value in that. There is glory in that. And we need to find the equity in that. So, our MC mentioned I did a TED Talk. And when I did my TED Talk, I talked about a story. And I want to say that again here because it happened right there, where that man in the blue shirt sitting. See, I'm an immigrant. I came to this country 18 years ago. I'm from Jamaica and I'm from Trinidad. That's right, the West Indies. And 6 years ago, I became a citizen, right there. It was one of the happiest days of my entire life. I love this country, I love it. Because you know what that ceremony guaranteed me? It guaranteed me this, that I belonged here. We need to take that into our offices, into our conference rooms, into our boardrooms. We need the Daves of the world to step in and say to the Sondras of the world, you belong here, and I am going to do the hard work to make sure that you succeed. That's what we need for pay equity. See, the mountain of pay equity is not going to be taken down overnight. But piece by piece, we are going to do it together. And though it will take many, many lifetimes to truly create gender equality in our workplace, it only takes one person to start. You. So that's my challenge to all of you today. Get out there and go get started. I cannot wait to see the legacy that you all leave behind when you do. Thank you very much, everyone.
Incredible. I have shivers. Many of you all have been a Sandra. Raise your hands. Yep, I see a lot of Sandras out here. And it's incredible how beautifully you've been able to articulate a feeling, an emotion that so many of us go through, and we don't have those words. And you found them for us. It's something that's really powerful and empowering. Up next, I'd love to introduce to you the League of Women Voters Illinois Executive Director, Audra Wilson. Audra began her legal career as a staff attorney with the Sargent Shriver National Center on Poverty Law, where for 5 years she focused on food security issues and advocacy for low-income working families. I'm proud to introduce you all to Audra.
So, Michelle, I should have known you were Jamaican. Hello, friend. And I'm 5 feet 8 inches tall and 5'10" in my heels, so I'm leaning in too. So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm talking to you very briefly, but I'm here to talk to you a little bit about the ERA, so Equal Rights Amendment, all right? So when we talk about the ERA, many people ask me, well, why do we need an amendment to the Constitution? Don't women already have equal protection under the U.S. Constitution? So there's a bunch of lawyers here, so there's a little legal lesson for you. Okay. So the truth is, the vast majority of Americans do not know that women do not currently have equal protection under the United States Constitution. So women and men are guaranteed equal rights, but the only right that's explicitly guaranteed by the Constitution that extends to both men and women is the right to vote. So the ERA is an amendment to the Constitution that would guarantee equal legal rights for all American citizens regardless of sex. It would require states to intervene in cases of gender violence, such as domestic violence and sexual harassment, and it would guard against pregnancy and motherhood discrimination, and it would federally guarantee equal pay. Okay, right? So the ERA was actually first proposed, believe it or not, in 1923, but was not passed by Congress until 1972. And it then had to be ratified by 38 states by 1982, which, by the way, is very arbitrary. But by 1982, only 35 states had ratified it in time. So people then ask me, well, then, doesn't the 14th Amendment guarantee equal protection? And the answer is yes. We said, nope, not exactly. Lawyers all over the place. During the 70s and 80s, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, RBG, helped to persuade the Supreme Court to extend the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment to prohibit unequal treatment on the basis of sex, similar to what the ERA would have done. But supporters have said that the clause does not go far enough, especially when it comes to violence against women, sexual harassment, and, why are we here today, equal pay. So then people ask, well, would anyone ever want to turn back the clock on women's advancement? You're supposed to say yes. So yes, unfortunately, many people do. Now, I just came right before I with the League of Women Voters, and I'm so proud to be here. I worked for 5.5 years with the House of Representatives, the United States House of Representatives. So I have to constantly remind people how many members of Congress who tried to undermine Title IX, which requires equal opportunity education, the people who opposed VAWA, the Violence Against Women Act, the Fair Pensions Act, the Paycheck Fairness Act, and for the members who voted to pay for Viagra for servicemen but opposed funding for family planning and contraception. I'm just saying. So without a specific constitutional guarantee of equal rights through the Equal Rights Amendment, it will be much harder, or with a specific guarantee, it will be much harder for legislators and courts to reverse our progress in eliminating sex discrimination. Now, really quickly, in 2018, Illinois was the 37th state to ratify the ERA, okay? and many of you in this audience were an integral part of pushing that through. Now, one more state is needed to assure that, to get the 38 states to assure ratification, and that's 3/4 of the states. In 2019, Virginia very narrowly defeated ratification. Ooh. However, there are currently many ERA bills in Arizona, Florida, Georgia, Missouri, and South Carolina. And the ERA bill is soon to be filed in North Carolina, and possibly Utah. Now, last thing, about that 1982 ERA ratification deadline that I said was arbitrary, there's no mention of a ratification deadline in the Constitution. And according to the language, the amendment is valid once the 38th state has ratified. Okay? So therefore, it's just a constitutional or joint resolution from 1972 that talks about this deadline. Okay? So what do you need to do, for those of you who are here? You need to get out there and get as much information as possible to anyone who does not know about the ERA. They can come to our website, lwvil.org. You can look up anything about the ERA. You want to encourage anyone you know in the states that I just mentioned about making sure that we ratify this, because this is imperative. So now, are you all ready to see the ERA added as the next Constitution, to the next amendment to the Constitution? Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Oh boy, I have a feeling we're going to be rushed off this stage, but equal pay takes a long time, and we've got a lot more speakers. So I'd love to introduce to you all Brian Wood, lead attorney at the Wood Law Offices. He is a Chicago employment lawyer who concentrates in helping protect employees' civil rights by ensuring employees and managers understand their rights, obligations, and options. This is a man to know, people. We've got to arm ourselves with as much of this education as possible. Brian?
Thank you. I've never been happier to not be named Dave. It's an honor to be a part of this rally that I have tried to support for a number of years. I'd like to thank everyone involved in planning it and all of you for coming out. I'm involved because of the women who I've been able to represent over the course of my career who've inspired me. Women who've taken on pay equity in various industries, from medicine to technology to financial services. Those women risk not only their present position in challenging pay equity at their companies, but then also their future careers. Not everyone can afford to make those sacrifices, but in honor of Equal Pay Day today, we're launching a website called equalpaylawyers.com. If you need a lawyer, you will find a lawyer there that you can talk to. I don't want to talk too much about lawsuits because the law is not really designed to tackle the types of problems that Michelle described, Sandra has, and many of you may have had on your own. I want to talk about some things that we can do together, and especially that the men can do together to help solve this problem. There's three important things that we can do, and number one, I think we have to engage men to help solve it. Men, we cannot sit on the sidelines and allow pay inequity to continue. It affects our friends, our colleagues, our bosses, our aunts, our sisters, our mothers, and if we don't get involved in helping change it, it will affect our daughters. They will suffer the same problems. Second, and this is important for everyone, we all need to be sharing information about compensation. Right now, it's taboo to talk about what you earn. It's taboo to talk about what someone else has earned with your peers or your bosses, or maybe even with human resources. We need to move conversations about compensation from the golf courses and the locker rooms and the private dinners in managers' houses to the conference rooms or the water coolers at work. People fear that those types of conversations will breed jealousy or distrust. It is inaccurate information. It is uncertainty that breeds those feelings, and communication and information is the way to remedy it. Transparency is key. And under the Equal Pay Act, it's unlawful for any employer to discharge or in any other manner discriminate against any individual for inquiring about, disclosing, comparing, or otherwise discussing the employee's wages or the wages of any other employee. So the law protects those kind of conversations that we need to have. Talk it up. Don't be afraid to ask, and don't be afraid to share, especially men. Third, and there's a lot of people who've been talking about this, we need to advocate through our legislators to make legal changes. Lawsuits are not going to do the trick. There are a number of great things that are underway both here in Illinois as well as at the federal level. The salary ban being an important one. That ban is necessary to prevent the historical pay discrimination from being used to justify current pay discrimination. So that's one change that we definitely need to work on. But we can all do this together. I appreciate the great honor to be here and to be able to speak to you. And if we continue to work together, we will change this on hopefully a much faster timetable than the ones that you've been hearing about. Thank you very much.
I'd like to introduce Sherita Allen, the new CEO and President of Women Employed. Sherita?
Let's see if I can speed this up and get us all out of here. So thank you for everyone that's here. Thank you for you guys for sticking it out and sitting through all these speakers and getting the information that you need. So I might be new to Women Employed, but Women Employed is not new to this. Women Employed has been fighting for economic equity and justice for women for more than 4 decades. And pay equity is at the core of our work. We have made great progress. However, as we've all heard today, the rate of change is just too slow. The gender pay gap has only closed by a nickel in the 21st century. So I have a 19-year-old daughter. I like to make things really simple for people to understand. I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's a sophomore in college. By the time she enters into the full-time workforce, hopefully that will be sometime soon, she will not see pay equity. If she has a daughter within the next 10 years, and after that daughter graduates from college and enters into the workforce, she won't have pay equity either. It will take 3 generations for my great-granddaughter to enter the full-time workforce for her to see pay equity. And just because I happen to be born both black and a woman, it will take even longer. Sorry, I'm changing pages. So I'm cutting all this out because I want you all to understand there's a way for you to take action. We have heard reference to bills and legislation today, so we can no longer ignore, minimize, or just talk about the wage gap. It's time to make ending pay discrimination in Illinois a priority. We and our partners are working on a no salary history bill that will strengthen the Illinois Equal Pay Act to prohibit employers from asking job applicants about their salary history. Of course, if you're already have pay inequity and you go into another job and they base your pay off of that inequitable pay, you're going to continue to perpetuate pay inequity. So, we're passed this bill twice, both times with bipartisan support, but former Governor Rauner vetoed it twice. I know, boo. So today is a new day, and this is the year that we will make no salary history the law of the land in Illinois. We introduced the House Bill 834. Everybody's going to remember this. We introduced the House Bill 834 again this year with our lead sponsor, Representative Anna Moeller, and it successfully passed the House. Hopefully, House Bill 834 will be heard in the Senate next week with lead sponsor Senator Christina Castro. So what does that mean for you? That means today and tomorrow, each and every one of you will contact your senator and tell them to support House Bill 834. You're going to go onto your social media network And you're going to tell all of your people to contact their senator and support House Bill 834. If you don't know how to contact your senator, you can go to @WomenEmployed on Facebook, on Twitter. It is pinned to the top of our feed. You click on the link. We'll give you who your person is. We'll give you the telephone number. We don't want emails. We don't want letters. We want phone calls, okay? So today and tomorrow, everyone is going to flood these phone lines, and you're going to tell everybody to support what? I think you got it. So let me close by saying your voices do matter. If you contact these legislators, it will make a difference, and we will be able to pass the laws that will help close the wage gap. We know that when women come together and our allies, including our male allies that are here with us today, things will change. We're committed to fighting against gender and race pay discrimination until all women are paid what they're worth. So, are you with us? Yeah. All right, let's get it done.
And on that note, I'd like to introduce to you all YWCA Metropolitan Chicago CEO, Dorie Mcwhorter, for closing remarks. Thank you all.
How to manage the skirt here. So thank you all for being here, and thank you, Jacqueline, for being a fabulous MC, and Sherita, welcome. We're so proud to have you in the sisterhood. I really want to also thank Barb Young. So Barb, for her unending commitment to raising awareness on this issue. So Barb and I talk about this every year. While we wish we don't have to be here, year after year, I'm glad that for as long as the wage gap exists, I know Barb will absolutely continue to convene us all and highlight some of the amazing leaders and organizations that are engaged on a daily basis in driving solutions and change. So we got to give it up for Barb. Thank you, Barb. Thank you. So the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago, I'm so honored to be the CEO. We are the oldest and largest provider of human services for women and families in the region. So we're leaders across the areas of sexual violence prevention and intervention, early childhood education, and child care provider services, and also economic empowerment. Our impact with individuals and families is significant. We're helping women heal from trauma, gain new skills, and build and advance in new careers and start small businesses. But we're also working on a systems level change, supporting public policies that you've heard today, and working within the business community to create a more inclusive marketplace where everyone thrives. Thank you. You know, at the YWCA Metropolitan Chicago, we've said for quite some time that equal pay is just not that complicated, people. It's not that complicated. .org. It is not that complicated. Not that complicated. But many companies are in fact taking action, and now we're encouraging more action and measuring the change of that action through our Women's Empowerment Exchange Traded Fund that we launched on the New York Stock Exchange. So one of the criteria used to evaluate a company's ranking for inclusion in the Women's Empowerment ETF, ticker Women, WOMN, is whether they have processes in place to ensure equal pay. We can absolutely hold companies accountable, and the fact that we have a capitalistic economy, one way to do that is the capital markets. So we all absolutely have the opportunity to encourage corporate behavior through our socially conscious purchases. We consume goods every day. We need to know who's paying who while we consume those goods. We can figure this out. And now we also have socially responsible investment choices. And I strongly believe that if we want to make change in the issue of pay equality, we must use every lever available to us. That means, yes, public policy. That means individual advocacy that you've heard today. That means good corporate leadership. And that means creating accountability through the capital markets. Even the Queen Bee, Beyonce herself, says, "Give me my check. Put some respect on my check. Pay me in equity." Watch me reverse out of debt. Skirt. So in closing, I just want to thank all of our speakers. I love these ladies because I know that if we have to be, we will be here year after year. But I also want to thank each of you. You had amazing tips today as to what at least you can impact, and we want to encourage you to do that. And if not, we'll see you again here next year. Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. Let's get to work.